Before we get into the video, I want to talk to you guys about the OneFootball app, because for me it's the best football app there is on the planet. It's great for team news, transfer news, player statistics, league tables, all of that good stuff. So you can use the link in the description down below to get the app for free. And it's actually now even better than ever, because now you have full Serie A coverage once again for free. So that's league tables, but more importantly, game highlights. And also, once every game week, you can watch a match live, literally for free. Zero cost. The next one will be on the 1st of October after the international break, and it will be Empoli at home to AC Milan. A game that I'm really looking forward to watching, and you guys should be too. If you are interested, make sure to use the link in the description down below. I really do highly recommend it. Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today I want to talk about England and how they can fix some of the problems that they've been having. So I done a video the other day looking at the issues that England are currently facing and what Southgate is doing wrong. Now, a lot of people in the comments agreed that one of the big problems that England currently face is the inability to progress the football. And that's obviously a big problem. If you can't progress the football, you can't get into the final third, you can't create chances, you can't score goals, you can't win football matches. So today I want to talk about how England can fix that problem and how England can start scoring goals. But I want to do it in a slightly different way to how other people have been doing it. So you might want me to talk about how England can beat the top teams, how England can beat Italy, Germany, Spain, France, whoever it may be. But I don't want to do that in today's video because that's not the challenge that England are going to face at the World Cup. Now, if we look at England's group, no disrespect to the teams in the group, but Iran, USA, and we now know it's Wales, England are going to dominate the ball in most of those games. Teams are going to sit off in a mid or a low block. England are going to need to progress the ball and find a way to break them down. If they can't do that, we haven't got to worry about whether they can beat the big teams because they're not even going to get there. So first, England need to find a way to beat these smaller teams, or quote smaller teams, no disrespect. Find a way to progress the ball through the pitch. This is going to be all about ball progression, and I want to do it in a slightly different way to how other people have been doing it. So of course England have a lot of problems at the moment, and in the past week or so we've seen people talking about how to fix these problems, whether that's on YouTube or Twitter posts, whatever. And a lot of people are saying Ramsdale in goal, Chilwell and Alexander-Arnold at fullback, perhaps Tomori and Ben White at centre-back, for example, things like that. And as much as people might want that to happen, and as much as that might be right, maybe I agree, I'm not going to say, Southgate isn't going to do that. So rather than talking about necessarily what the best manager in the world would do with this England team, I want to talk about how Southgate can improve this England team. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to stick with some of his favourites. Shaw is going to be in the team, Walker, Maguire, Mason Mount, players like that are still going to be in this England team. There's still going to be an air of caution to the lineup, but still, I'm going to tell you how England can be much, much better. So actually how Southgate can do it. Not how this manager or that manager could do it, or how I would do it. How Gareth Southgate can fix this England team. Because I think that's a way more realistic prospect. And something that we could actually see happening. And I alluded to it the other day in my video. The way to do it is for England to play a 4-2-3-1. And as you can see, I've stuck with some of the favourites. We've got Mason Mount in the team. Raheem Sterling on the right wing, which I'm not entirely satisfied by, but I'll go over that in the video. This is the way that I think England could set up under Southgate and still play good progressive football. And I want to talk about a few different systems that they could face and how they could break them down. Now, one shape that England could well face at the World Cup is a 4-3-3, which, when a team is looking to sit off and defend, will become quite narrow and compact, and a bit more of a 4-5-1. Now, what we're going to do is go through a few different systems that England will face, and I'm going to talk about how Southgate could use this 4-2-3-1, make slight adjustments, and break down pretty much every shape that England could face, which is why I think this is a really interesting video. Because we're using the 4-2-3-1 for England, but we're breaking down several different formations just by moving a few different players. So the first thing we're going to do here is move Mason Mount to the left, we're going to move Bellingham higher up the pitch here, Rice comes into a solo pivot role, and our fullbacks become much more inverted and narrow. And now essentially we have a 2-3-4-1 attacking shape. And there's a few different reasons for this. Now, the first thing we have here is inverted fullbacks, and Kyle Walker in particular at the back. They're going to provide that safety on the counter-attack. So there is that bit of caution that Southgate will want. There is enough players at the back to defend transitions. In terms of on the ball, there's some easy ball progression methods, and that's one of the reasons that we have our fullbacks narrow. Now, if you have a fullback wide, let's take Kyle Walker for example, if I put him nice and wide on the ball here and he receives the pass like this wide winger, what he has to do is step across like here, and now that pass to Sterling is cut off, right? And it's quite easy. When you play with an inverted fullback, it's easier for the attacking team. Because when you do this, it's a more difficult angle for this guy to cut off. Because if he tries to cut it off like this, it opens up the pocket of space in behind here. So naturally this winger will come narrow. So immediately England have a very, very, very basic method of ball progression. And that's with the fullbacks just playing the ball into the winger's feet. And we can see the other side here. The opposition will defend narrow and compact, because when you defend you make the pitch small. It gives England an easy passing option. And that is why it's so key to have players who are willing to play out wide. We've got Foden on the left, who of course plays a similar role for Manchester City. Then Sterling on the right, although it could also be Saka who comes in, because he plays a similar role for Arsenal. So immediately, that is one easy way that England can progress the ball. And one of the most important things when doing this is that the wingers have to be brave on the ball. And again, that does come down to Southgate. He's got to give the players the license to take chances, to take risks. And I think that is something really important. These players have to be willing to get 1v1. I am just going to quickly interrupt because we do have another sponsor for today's video, and that is jerseyfifa.com. The website you need to head to right away to get yourself the latest and greatest football shirts, all at an extremely affordable price. The link will be in the description below, so head there right away to get yourself a great shirt, again at a great price. Now back to the video. Now the benefit that England have is they do have better personnel than all the teams that they will face in the group stage. So perhaps against better opposition you might try and get a man in a free space. You might be looking for the free man. When you naturally have the better players, you can put players in 1v1 situations and expect them to perform. So you can put Foden 1v1 up against a fullback, and no offence to Iran and the teams in this group, I think you would back Foden against most of the right backs that England are going to face, and you'd back Sterling or Saka against most of the left backs, and that is where life is made easier for Southgate because he's got such a good squad on his hands. So that is an easy way to progress the ball. The winger width is key, and they need to be given the licence to attack this team and lose the ball. So that's one way that England can progress. Another way that England can progress the ball is trying to play a bit more through the centre of the pitch here. And this is where the likes of Mount and Bellingham are important, but also Harry Kane. Now, for this to happen, the movement of the fullbacks once again is key. Now, we are going to move them slightly wider, but they still aren't progressing too much. So Southgate, don't worry, you don't need to sweat. I'm still not asking these fullbacks to play high. Now, what moving this fullback does is it forces the opposition winger to move a little bit wider, right? We were talking earlier about cutting this pass here. A winger will naturally do that. Because if they don't, it's an easy pass and then even easier ball progression. So the winger naturally kind of has to move across if your fullback moves wide. This is why Gareth Southgate likes playing Harry Maguire and John Stones, because they then have a lot of quality on the ball, which means they are able to step into the pitch. And this gives England a good chance. Because what you can do here is then you've got the likes of Mason Mount, Bellingham and Kane willing to drop into pockets. And if Rice is also in here, if we just mark this out like this, you can see Mount, Rice, Bellingham and Kane against a midfield three. So England now have numerical superiority. So before I was talking about getting players into 1v1s, this is going one step better. This is finding free men in the middle of the pitch. And when you have quality players like England do, that is a big thing. Now you might say, well surely this guy comes out and defends it. But it's not as easy as that, because you then have very simple passes around the corner and this free man here. This is the benefit of having two players like this playing in an attacking position, rather than the 4-2-3-1 like this with two holding midfielders where this guy can be tracking Mount. England are now pinning players back, and now you can find someone like Kane's feet with passes around the corner, quite simple things. The other option is to again use a similar sort of pattern, have the fullback pull wide, the centre back stepping, and then look to use the feet of the winger. Because the fullback, of course, will track into this area, you can't leave them free, but again, England have that quality on the ball. Now the fullback can push forward, and now again, England have managed to get in behind the opposition's team, with again, a very simple structure. I'm not asking for Southgate to be tactically innovative and come up with something we've never seen in football before. These are quite simple patterns, just players moving positions. It's about dragging the opposition and pinning them back. And of course, the other option when you're trying to break a team down is to commit men over to one side of the pitch and really overload one side. Because when a team is committing to defending, they will make the pitch as small as possible, so they will kind of drag players like this over across, and that is why I want our wingers to have nice, plenty of width. Harry Maguire is a good long passer, out to Sterling, and then get someone like Kyle Walker perhaps making an underlapping run, or Jude Bellingham. So, I think I should add that football is of course way more complicated than this, but what we can see here is that in a few simple patterns, a few simple little switches, bringing our fullbacks narrow and pushing the wingers wide, England can now break down a 4-3-3 formation, or a 4-5-1, something that they have struggled with in the past. Now, at international level, teams are quite smart and they will adapt to this. And one issue that this England shape would face is teams that defend in a 4-2-3-1. So let me set that up real quick now. So if the opposition were to set up in a 4-2-3-1, we can see that it nullifies some of the strengths that we've just been talking about for England, because the fullbacks are now 1v1 with our wingers, the double pivot are 1v1 with Bellingham and Mount, and the attack midfielder is man-marking Rice. Now, if this is to happen, Southgate has to be smart, and it's just a small tactical tweak he needs to make. Stones can move across into a middle centre-back, Kyle Walker drops deeper, Declan Rice moves across, as does Luke Shaw, or perhaps even Trippier could play in this sort of game state, this sort of scenario against a 4-2-3-1. Again, I want to push Mount and Bellingham nice and high and use the winger width. Now immediately, you can now progress through the mid-block, and that's the most important thing again, progression. So if this is the case, we've got a 3-2 being pressed by a 4-2-3-1, the first thing we can see is that the striker is not going to be able to press all three centre-backs. So immediately England have ball progression here with the wide centre-backs. Now the other option is for the opposition wingers, because they can't press all the way up here. I mean, they can if they want to, but if they do, England then easily 2v1 in the centre of the park. So they can't do that. So what it does as a result is it forces the opposition to sit off and move their wingers slightly deeper like this. Now, the first thing that this does, again, they're going to come narrow, trying to stop Shaw and Rice getting on the ball. Again, something that this does is makes the pass out to the winger very, very easy. And once again, we've got one pass and we can get our winger 1 versus 1 against the fullback. And again, I want bravery on the ball. Whether it's Foden, whether it's Sterling, whether it's Saka, Grealish, Sancho, Rashford, Jared Bowen, whoever it may be, these players need to be brave on the ball and they need to be allowed to be brave. The other thing we could see is again using a fullback's movement to bait the opposition and drag them out of position. So let's say here the right winger is intent on following Luke Shaw. If he just drags his position to the left hand side slightly, and perhaps if Mason Mount does something similar, we now have Harry Kane who can drop deep. And the benefit that England have by playing in this structure is that they have more central midfielders. So if Shaw is willing to bait out wide like this, just opens the passing lane for Harry Kane to receive the ball into feet. And Harry Kane is that good that he's now unmarked because the opposition don't have a holding midfielder. Kane is good enough to now play the pass in behind for Sterling, or the other way for Foden to get in behind the defence. So again, that is a way that England can progress the ball. The other option, of course, if the fullback, or if Shaw, wants to say slightly narrower, is just, again, the wide centre-backs easily stepping forward, because these wide wingers can't come press them, and then, again, Harry Kane is the free man. And I think against a 4-2-3-1, Harry Kane has to be used, and use his ability to drop slightly deeper, because with Bellingham and Mount pinning, the keyword, pinning the opposition's midfield back, they can't come out and engage, they can't come out and press. Again, it makes Harry Kane an easy passing option through the lines. So once again, even against the 4-2-3-1, all we've done, literally, is we've moved a centre-back slightly wider, we've moved a full-back deeper, and a full-back narrower. And now suddenly England can break down a 4-2-3-1 with these passing lanes. This is a change that could literally be made in-game. Southgate just has to have the intelligence to do it. But now, once again, England have the ability to progress the ball. And then, of course, just finally on the shape, the other option is the easy pass out wide. We then see third man runs off the ball from someone like Mason Mount, dragging players like this, and then Luke Shaw becomes the free pass. Players like Harry Kane are free. What we can see is that with the formation that I set England up in at the start, with a few tweaks moving the fullback slightly, England can break teams down. Now I just want to look at the potential of playing against a back five, because some teams will do that, and that is England's kryptonite when they play against a 5-4-1. But I've got a way that England can progress the ball and break that shape down, so just bear with me a second. Now, of course, when you play against a 5-4-1, what we can see is they have a lot of men behind the ball and it's very compact in the centre of the pitch, but also if you move the ball wide, they can quickly 2v1 your winger or your fullback, thanks to the fact that I've got a wing back and also a winger protecting in front. However, again, if we use the same formation but move players about slightly more on this occasion, then we can break teams down. But don't worry, again, Southgate, I still have enough players back to protect your cautious nature. So, one of the things when you play against a back five, again, the key word is pinning opposition players, because this shape is all about shuffling from one side of the pitch to the other. In terms of a 5-4-1, it's all about shuffling across the pitch and closing gaps. What you have to do is pin players in certain positions so they can't shuffle, because that then leaves gap for other players. So, when you play against a back five, a lot of people think that the middle centre-back is the most aggressive. That isn't the case. The middle centre-back is usually the coverer, and it allows the two wider centre-backs to go and be nice and aggressive in the tackle in here. The way to counter that is to pin them. And the way to do this, is to push Harry Kane high on one of them, and then Mason Mount, if that's who Southgate prefers, high on the other one. Now what we have is wide centre-backs that now can't step out and be aggressive in the tackle, because if they do, they're leaving players in behind. And if they want to do that, they're now leaving their centre-backs 2v2. Against good footballers, you can't really do that. So we have now pinned the opposition centre-backs and their ability to step out and be aggressive in the middle of the pitch. And it kind of nullifies this middle centre-backs. It makes him a bit void in the middle. He doesn't really have a job now. Now, the other issue with the 5-4-1 is that this midfield four can constantly shuffle just side to side, up and down across the pitch, and it makes it very difficult to find holes. So again, what we have to do to address that is try and pin them. Now, the issue when you play a two-man midfield is a lot of teams play a midfield three, which means if you put someone like Bellingham here, they now can't shuffle across. Now if you put Declan Rice as a solo holder, again move our fullbacks narrow so they are ready to defend a counter-attack. Don't worry Gareth, I've got your back. Now we can see that we can create a lot more chances, and I want to talk through why that is. So firstly, the wide centre-backs can't step, which is a big strength of a back five. You have an extra centre-back, one can be aggressive. We have now pinned them. The other thing is this. Let's say if the ball was to go to Luke Shaw, for example, here. Typically teams will now shuffle across. But it is much harder to do that when you have an attacking midfielder, Jude Bellingham, lurking in behind them. It gives these central midfielders a decision to make. And again, if we look at the group, they aren't necessarily the best footballers in the world. In a split second, it's very difficult to cover this space when you've got an attacking midfielder in behind and the centre-backs can't be aggressive. So typically, if we've got a one-man striker system, let's just completely take Mount out for a second. If Bellingham was creating this problem, the midfield four would still shuffle across. Because if Bellingham does get the ball, the wide centre-back is going to be aggressive on them. However, if we move Mount back in, he's now pinning that centre-back, it is now much more difficult to track Jude Bellingham. And what it does is it means that these players can't come out and cover, which now gives our base of five a lot more time on the ball to take their time and step forward. And really dominate and take control. So one option that England have is the easy pass out wide into the winger, from the fullback to the winger. Once again, they can go 1v1 against their wingback, and again, it's all about being positive. Now again, typically we might see the wide centre-back come out and be aggressive, but we are pinning them. They can't come out and make these cover and runs because they are being pinned by the third man, Mason Mount and Harry Kane. They are pinning these players back so they can't make these runs. The other option, again, is to use our fullback as a bait. And if Shaw is just willing to pull slightly wider like this, again it just drags the winger because they can't leave him completely unmarked. So Harry Maguire now has the space to step in here. Now typically the centre mid comes out and engages. They can't because Bellingham is here. So if they want to take that risk and step out, Maguire has an easy pass into Jude Bellingham. So this player has to sit off. So now Maguire has time. You can't let Maguire have time. You can't let players have time on the ball. So the winger now comes across, and then Maguire can shift the ball out wide to the fullback. And now this is where you can now play. You might go into the feet of Mount and in behind Phil Foden, something like that. What we can see is that you can pin players back and use baiting of positions, little decoy runs from someone like Luke Shaw or Kyle Walker, and it causes a lot of problems for this 5-4-1 shape. And this is actually a method that Pep Guardiola used in the 2018-19 season. Pinning different players back and baiting players with little decoy runs is a brilliant way of breaking down a 5-4-1, because it is a very rigid system. It is very difficult to break down, but I do think that this is a way that England could do it. Of course, again, in this shape there are other options as well. Again, we can use this decoy from Shaw to pull wider. The player steps like this. Maguire steps forward with the ball in this new created space. The striker can't come and be aggressive because Declan Rice is here, kind of pinning, but also just covering. Maguire can step in. If Mason Mount's happy to drop into this area, this player can't come out and progress because Bellingham's in behind again, and it makes the passing move a lot easier. And what we can see is that England have ways that they can manipulate teams. Now, fortunately, England have players that are very capable of doing this. Now, this isn't the most advanced tactical setup you'll ever see, what I'm asking of England here. This is stuff that Gareth Southgate is capable of, especially with a squad that is this good. Now, this video has been based on progressing the ball. If you'd like to see another video on how they can then create in the final third, I'm happy to do that. But this video, I want to talk about how England can get the ball moving forward, because I think that's what the fans want to see. At the moment, we see far too many sideways passes, which are way too safe, way too much caution on the ball, way too much caution from Gareth Southgate. I think if England were to switch to this 4-2-3-1 and use reactive tactical switches during a game, which is on Southgate, then England have so many ways that they can progress the ball and get the ball moving forward. They just need the bravery to do it, but also the system. The system to do that is the 4-2-3-1, that manoeuvrability and the versatility of the fullbacks, and also Bellingham and Mount is really key. I think that it's there, the shape is there, you can do it. Like I said, this has been a rather basic breakdown. Football is of course more complicated than that, but what I want to do is give you guys an idea of how England can be more expressive and more progressive on the ball. Because a lot of people, including myself, are saying Southgate is too cautious. What I'm not seeing anyone saying is how you can address that. how you can change it, what England should be doing. I'm seeing a lot of what England aren't doing, not what England should be doing. So now I've told you what England should be doing, how England can be progressing the ball forward against these different teams, against these different structures that England will face during the group stage. I think it works. I really think this shape works, and I think there's a lot of potential there because, like I said, it allows Southgate to get some of his favourite players in a team. It allows him to have that slight bit of caution with, of course, the inverted fullbacks ready to defend transitions. Really, I think it works. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you make of the tactical changes that I've suggested in this video? Do you agree? Is there a different formation you'd go for? What do you think? Also, I should say this was recorded before the Germany game, so there might be some things that have changed, but I don't think that will be the case too much. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Would you like to see this shape at the World Cup for England? Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.